Inside the last 20 minutes of the SportsMax Zone for this Wednesday, we turn our attention now to cricket. The fallout from the controversial CWI Super 50 final on the 23rd of November has taken another turn. The attorneys for Barbados Pride captain Raymond Reifer have written to Cricket West Indies asking them to withdraw the charges against their client because he will not be able to get a fair and impartial hearing. Reifer, along with the Jamaica Scorpions captain John Campbell, both failed to show for the toss after the umpires informed of an adjusted start time following hours of rain. Both players were charged with level 3 breaches of the CWI Code of Conduct. But while Campbell accepted the charges and received a reduced 4-match ban, Reifer is intent on fighting. In a statement released last Friday, Cricket West Indies said the 33-year-old was yet to respond to the charges. Hence the following response from his legal representative, Philip Nichols. Here's that response. In your release, you again not so much as imply but state outright that Mr. Reifer has not responded to the charge leveled against him, which was the same charge to which Campbell has been sanctioned for. This is not correct. In fact, given the additional comments attributed to your Director of Cricket on the matter, a reasonable reader of your press release, which appeared shortly after release on social media, including Facebook and the #1 cricket site on the internet, ESPN Cricinfo, would conclude that as soon as you can get your hands on Mr. Reifer, a same or worse fate would befall him. In light of this clear prejudice against a fair and impartial hearing for my client, may I once again reiterate my call for the charge against Mr. Reifer to be withdrawn for the grounds outlined in my letter to you on the 3rd of December. I'm sure that your attorneys will advise that even if there was no response, the only two options presented to Mr. Reifer of guilty or not, the correct and sensible act would be to summon him to a hearing and note that he has pleaded not guilty. So Philip Nichols, attorney for Raymond Reifer, now joins us live on the SportsMax Zone to discuss this issue. Well, we've had several working days since the letter that you've presented to the CWI, Mr. Nichols. Can you say at this point in time if there's been any response from the CWI legal team?
Good afternoon, Lance. There has been a response from CWI, not their legal team, in which the implication in the response is that they would be convening a disciplinary committee hearing at a later date to deal with the issue.
Can I ask if you are surprised that John Campbell's legal team, if he has one on this issue, didn't take the course that you are taking with Reifer?
Well, it's kind of difficult to say so. I have never spoken to Mr. Campbell, nor any legal team. I've had discussions with Reifer on the matter, but they would know, and I think that question would have to be directed to them, why they made the decision that they did. The BCA, as you know, after any game, reports are submitted, and reports of the management team, including the report from the captain, were received by the Board of Management of the BCA. And when at the same time they were informed that Mr. Reifer was now facing an upgraded charge, they sought legal advice, and that advice to them was that the charges, in their opinion, were null and void. And therefore, they have made certain representations to Cricket West Indies, to which they haven't responded as yet on that score.
Mr. Nichols, you have a history that's steeped in cricket experience. You're a former Barbados Cricket Association Gen 6, so I think you understand cricket better than most.
I wouldn't say so.
Are you surprised that the CWI went in the way that they did in the charge against Reifer and Campbell?
Well, I would have to say so. I don't know if all the facts are out there as yet. I think the only fact that seems not to be in contention is that there was a lot of rain. Cricket was in doubt for much of the day, and that the players were then informed at about, let's say, 5:45, that the game would be starting at 17 minutes past 6, and that the toss would be at 6 o'clock. Now, anyone who is involved in any form of cricket match would know that certain things have to take place before, one, you can toss, and then two, you can start play. And the reports from Mr. Reifer and the management team indicate that they simply ran out of time in doing all the pre-match duties, regulations, including getting the teams to the umpires before the time that they were summoned to make the toss came about, which is not unreasonable. It was only 15 minutes.
But there is a view, though, Mr. Nichols, that the rules are in place and the umpires and the match adjudicators are the persons responsible for deciding whether play is possible and whether conditions are right for play. So there is a widely felt view that the players and the teams were defiant and that, you know, they were breaching the rules of the game because they were ordered to take the field. So their position, both teams would have been one of defiance.
Mr. Wick, I understand that position. But what I was saying is, before you can toss and take the field, there are certain things that have to take place. And the question is whether the players were given reasonable time. You know, in this day and age where fitness and trainers are paramount in all games, that when athletes are informed that it's time for them to start, there usually is a warm-up process. Now, if you're talking about a quarter to 6, information that the toss is going to be spun at 6 o'clock, and the game is going to start at 17 minutes past 6. You're seeing there are very tight lines there. Timelines are very tight. And all I would say on that matter is that there is the position as reported by the match referee and the umpires, is the position that our client has reported. And there, no doubt, if and when a hearing is convened, you will hear different things.
Yeah.
What I can say on that ground too is that it should be noted, I don't think that many people realize this, that on the Saturday night of the game, Mr. Reifer and Mr. Campbell were charged with a level 1 offense by the umpires. Those offenses only attract a fine of, I think it's a maximum of 50% of your match fee, maybe higher, or all your match fee. And Mr. Reifer said he was not guilty. Mr. Reifer then did not know about this level 3 charge until he arrived back in Barbados the next day and was told that he had less than 12 hours to respond. Now, that day was a Sunday. Now, it is highly unreasonable in these circumstances to expect now that he's being presented with a charge where he would face a potential ban, that he can get a response on a Sunday, not a working day, to Cricket West Indies, especially as he is leaving the island the next day, as Cricket West Indies knew, for a cricket tournament and had been away for the better part of a month and would naturally want to see his family before he departed again.
Yeah, I take that point. You know, I read an article where you gave an interview actually talking about that time to respond, you know, not giving him the opportunity, of course, to even seek legal advice, and not just him, of course, John Campbell as well, because of the time frame. When CWI responded to you, because you said the attorneys didn't respond, you heard from CWI, what was that sort of communication like?
It was just a letter, but I would have to say my dealings with CWI over the last year, that has been typical, is that the response tends to come from the CEO when it is a legal issues are raised, because none of them were responded to in my letters, which I don't know if fortunately or unfortunately have got into the public domain. I raise certain legal issues as to the fairness and correctness of the charge. And that's never been responded to by CWI. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, and I know you're calling for them to withdraw the charges on the fact that you feel as if Raymond Reifer, your client, will not be getting a fair and impartial hearing. What's the
Well,
word?
that was not my initial call. My initial call was for the charges to be withdrawn because they were bad in law.
Right.
But after they announced that there had been a sanction for Mr. Campbell, now a reasonable person would view that there's not much chance for Mr. Reifer to receive a fair hearing because it's a done and dusted deal.
Yeah.
And that is the issue. And what I was saying at that time is that Cricket West Indies were aware at that time that Mr. Reifer was indicating that he viewed the charges as legally incorrect.
Yeah. How is Raymond Reifer doing with all of this happening, and then, of course, having to be a professional cricketer, carry about his duties as normal?
Well, I spoke to Raymond around this time yesterday. He's in Nepal now, so that the time difference is about 9 or 10 hours, I think, ahead of him. And naturally, he's concerned. Naturally, he's there, not with many, what I would say, kith and kin. So there are not many people that he can talk to. But in this day and age, with access to FaceTime and so on, I'm sure he's in contact with his friends and family. And he's holding up as best as possible. I think what I and others have conveyed to him is that he has the support of the Barbados Cricket Association, and that, you know, at some time in the future, when this matter ends, the full story of what took place will come out. Everybody has focused, and quite understandably, on the fact that the umpires said, come and toss, and no one was there at the appointed time. But other than that, there's not been many details in the public realm as to what exactly took place.
All right, Mr. Nichols, we've got to leave it there because we're out of time. In just 15 seconds, though, because this is not the topic that we're discussing, but as a cricket man and a former GenSec of the BCA, any quick thoughts on the Barbados and the Guyana cricket boards withdrawing, absenting themselves from the governance reform discussion that should have been had last week?
Well, I've had no discussions with the BCA on it. I am also now, after the meeting of the life vice president of the BCA, but I'm not involved in the day-to-day administration of the BCA, so I really could not comment on it.
Yes.
I would say the two sides appear to be somewhat apart on it, and hopefully at some time they will get together and try to iron out matters.
Okay, thank you very much, Philip Nichols, and we certainly hope that there will be some advance on this Raymond Reifer issue, and we hope it's settled in a way that is satisfying for both parties.
Thank you.
Thanks, Philip Nichols, attorney representing Raymond Reifer. Now, before we go into the break, the final break, something great to look forward to on Thursday's edition of the SportsMax Zone. The big jockey's coming, Robert Hardball Halladine, fresh from his rich Mute Mile victory, joins us in studio on the Zone to relive his big win on Saturday at Caymanas Park. Don't miss it.
I'm always going to be in the right place at the right time. I'm just really happy.